So I was working on a site and my designer gave me this background. When I politely asked for an SVG or a high resolution image, they said, "It's 2024, no one cares about fidelity. Let's act as if it's a stylistic choice." Yeah. We're not going to do that. Now I need to find a way to upscale this image, and there are a few ways I can do this. Number 1, with the use of an AI upscaler. Number 2, fire my designer and hire someone competent. 3, attempt to recreate this image using HTML and CSS. I tried the first option and it turned out like this. Yikes. I couldn't do the second option since my designer is just a figment of my imagination, so I decided to go with the third option. Oh, but couldn't you just write SVG markup instead of HTML? Well, I could, but I don't know how, and this way is more fun. I'll try and keep this short and simple. Here's what the image is supposed to look like, and this is what I received. You can see why this would be a problem. Now I'm going to show you how I overcame this, and I'll share a neat tip at the end on how I got an 8K image out of the web page. As always, the first thing I'll do is understand what I'm working with. We have a gradient background, 6 circles with gradient backgrounds, and 2 larger rings surrounding 2 of the circles. Let's start off with a blank slate and get to work. The HTML for this will be simple. I have one div container containing one span for each of the circles, and the rings will be created using some CSS magic. Now the resolution of the reference image is 120 by 67, and my goal is 1200 by 675, so 10 times the original image. Using this method, I'll be able to get a 4K or even 8K image as my result. So I'll set the container's desired size and add a border to visualize our working area. Now it's background time. This is a simple linear vertical gradient that has only 2 colors. So I'll grab a sample from the top and one from the bottom, and I'll use those for our background. I'll place the image as a reference image behind our element in order to make the placement of the circles as easy as possible. The process for creating the circles will be identical for each of the circles. So the idea is to style a span. I'll line up one horizontal edge and one vertical edge with the corresponding edges on the reference and adjust the height and width until the other edges meet. I'll set the size and a background color so we can see the elements. And for the first one, I'll set the position to absolute so I can use the physical properties, right and bottom, to position it. And now I'll adjust the height and width and set the border radius to 100%. Tip: for the circles that are cut off screen, set the border radius and then line up the curves by adjusting the height and width to get it just right. And then for the background, all of the circles have the gradients at different angles, and I'll figure this out by trial and error. And I'll take 4 equally spaced samples from the gradient and use those. Now I'll repeat this 5 times. Oh wait, something's ringing. Rings. Yeah, let's get on that. So I'll utilize the pseudo elements for the rings, and the idea here is to center the pseudo element around its parent and apply a border to it. I'll start off by centering them using the absolute positioning method, and I'll add the border, and I'll set the height and width to 100% so it matches the parent. And I'll be using the padding to extend the element past its parent's size. There's our background. Now in order to export this to a PNG, we can set the container height in CSS to 100 VH, which is the full height of the viewport, and I'll set the desired aspect ratio. It's important to use percentages for the sizes and positions of its children for this reason. For example, if we have a width of 100 pixels and we set an element to 10 pixels, that's 10% of the width. But if we then change our viewport size and make that 200 pixels, it won't be the same size relative to our original size. So using percentages can help avoid this and allow for a variety of resolutions. I removed the border on the container, so that's not in our final image. And in our browser, if we go into the DevTools and emulate mobile, we can change the device size to our desired size. Click these 3 dots and click Capture Screenshot. And it seems the image is exported to double the set resolution, but who am I to say no to some free pixels? This method is superior to just screenshotting because you can get 4K or even 8K images even if you only have a 1080p screen, like me. And there we go. Now you can happily use your high-res assets for your purposes, fire your designer, and that's all. Subscribe for more.